Good morning, and thank you for joining. A warm welcome to day 2 of our Fair Africa Fortnight campaign that we have themed Buy Local, Build Africa. The purpose of this campaign is to highlight the positive impact that local business has on our economy and how we as consumers can help change the socio-economic status of our countries by supporting locally, ethically, and fairly trading businesses. Today we hear from Bernard Ota, Regional Director of WFTO Africa and Middle East. He will discuss how the fair trade model presents a unique triple bottom line to all producer organizations that adopt it. He will also highlight how the 10 principles of fair trade can be used in the adoption of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We then show you how Township Patterns, a fair trade organization in Cape Town, South Africa, is managing to create an impact in the communities around the area. As a culmination to the Fortnight campaign, we are hosting our first ever virtual walkathon themed Strides for Africa on the 2nd of October. Register now. Details will show at the end of the live stream. Add your voice in the cause to support local businesses and build African economies. Enjoy.
My name is Nokuthula Tulibonga. I work for Township Patterns as a business development manager. And Township Pattern is over 20 years in existence. We work with women in local communities in Cape Town around economic empowerment of women. We have 50 women and 6 sewing co-ops within those communities. We work with women in Kailicha and in Menenberg, where they own their own sewing co-ops. And what we do, we assist them in terms of running those co-op as businesses. They're all registered and they run as a fully fledged businesses. And each co-op has an average about 6 to 9 individual ladies, and they own all the equipment. So from the sewing machine to all the equipment that they use, they own that. So that is the asset that we actually help them with. And what we do as from our side as well is making sure that we provide them with work in terms of income. So it is from a 20 to 30% of the actual product that we will provide them in terms of their income. So whatever work they do, that's an average estimate of what we pay to the woman. The core is to making sure that the women work within the communities. They are actually empowering also their members within those communities. Most of them have phenomenal stories of how the actual co-op impacts the surroundings of the communities. For example, Menenberg is very high in terms of violence, and most of the women, they find that is refuge when they do work together and they have a space where they can also engage with one another. So that's where the empowerment of women also comes in, and making sure they all share. We have monthly meetings with them. So as Township, we use eco-friendly fabric, which we also source within the Southern African region, the SADC. So our cotton is coming from either Zimbabwe or Madagascar. And then we also use recycled plastic bottle fabric, which is PET, that is sourced in South Africa. So our also main goal is also to empower our own community in terms of using African product and eco-friendly material as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Bernard Ota. I'm the Regional Director of the World Fair Trade Organization, the regional network for Africa and the Middle East. I just want to share a few reflections on part of our conversation around the Fair Africa Fortnight, which is coming up next week. And one of the issues that I want to reflect on is the question as to why WFTO, the World Fair Trade Organization, is referred to as the home of social enterprises. The point is that if you look at what social enterprises stand for, the fact that they tend to pay more attention to the people that they work with, including the environment and other social issues. This is very closely linked to what fair trade is all about. The issues that fair trade focuses on are very closely aligned and linked to to social enterprises. And so the idea of referring to WFTO as a home of social enterprises is more of an invitation to these enterprises to feel at home, to feel welcome, that within the WFTO and the fair trade community, there is space and there is room for social enterprises to be involved and to be engaged. And you can also look at this conversation within the framework of the triple bottom line of sustainability, which ideally calls upon enterprises to pay as much attention to issues around social and environmental concerns much as they would do on profit. And ideally what brings fair trade and social enterprises together or aligned, as already indicated, is the fact that both enterprises prioritize the people that they work with, the environment and the planet, more than they will prioritize profit. Not to say that profit is not important. We already indicated that fair trade enterprises need to be commercially viable, but the point is that the priority needs to focus more on the people and the planet than profit. The second point that I want to reflect on is how does fair trade impact on communities, the communities that are part of these fair trade enterprises. I would say that fair trade enterprises in the first place are meant to create impact, community impact, and if you look at what the communities that fair trade prioritize and target, farmers or workers or artisans who are disadvantaged. If you look at this particular targeting, and the idea that they were previously disadvantaged, is to say that fair trade would, in the first place, seek to make a difference in the lives of these people. And the connection that these people do have with the communities of families is also a very important engagement that fair trade has. And at the end of the day, we want to see how communities can benefit directly from a fair trade engagement. Lastly, I also want to reflect on how fair trade principles connect or are aligned with Sustainable Development Goals. If you look, for example, SDG goal number 1, which talks about no poverty. Clearly, this particular SDG number 1 is aligned with WFTO principle number 1, which also talks about providing opportunities or creating opportunities to the less or the disadvantaged producers, whether they're workers or farmers or artisans. And if you look at across, if you put the totality of the 10 principles, really, at the end of the day, fair trade seek to improve the livelihoods of the people and the communities within which it engages. And while fair trade cannot in itself or on its own end poverty, but the fact that then we engage, for example, with disadvantaged communities, disadvantaged workers and artisans and farmers, providing equal opportunities for women, for example, that these activities, these interventions gradually helps to draw people, workers, farmers, artisans away from the poverty line. Another example of an SDG that is clearly aligned to the 10 principles of WFTO is SDG number 5, which talks about gender equality. And this particular principle, this particular SDG is very clearly aligned to the principle number 6, which talks about non-discrimination, gender equity, as well as freedom of association. We could also reflect on other SDGs. For example, SDG number 8, which talks about decent work and economic growth. On this particular SDG, of course, there are several principles that are aligned to it. I mean, if you look at the entire principle number 4 that talks about fair trade practices and what all these practices entail, or we are looking at principle number 4 on fair payment, and what this means, actually fair payment, including issues around living wage, and what this will mean to providing a decent working environment as well as working condition, and even to look at other principles. I would say even principle number 7 that talks about issues around capacity building, for example, that fair trade enterprise is supposed to deliver to the people that they're working with. And if you look at the fair trade, principle number 7 that talks about good working condition, for example. In totality, all these principles contribute to decent work and economic growth. And finally, I will reflect on principle SDG number 12 that talks about sustainable consumption and production. And I would say that at the core of fair trade really is to ensure that fair trade enterprises produce and practice or engage in business practices that are sustainable, but at the same time providing opportunities to consumers to be able to exercise their values at the point when they do purchases, so that the purchases that they do are those that are aligned to sustainable production, that are aligned to sustainable consumption, and that those purchases help to reinforce the commitment of enterprises to be able to continue their journey on the path of sustainability. So in general, there are several, I would say there are several SDGs that are very clearly aligned to fair trade principle as it were. Thank you.